I'm Stuart Douglas. I'm the Managing Director of Pogo Charge, and we are deploying an ultra-rapid charging network in the UK.
Hi, I'm Chris Chamberlain. I'm one of the co-founders of Dodona Analytics, and we've been working with Pogo for nearly 2 years now, actually, helping you put some chargers in the ground. So at the heart of things, we're data scientists, and what we have is a platform that helps CPOs or anyone deploying charge points assess the viability and feasibility of multiple sites, like hundreds or thousands, in order to choose the right sites and where you guys put them.
Dodona is a tool which we use in our network development team. It's a product that we use to assess and select sites in the UK. It gives us lots of detailed information on traffic flows, points of interest, local competition, as well as electricity availability and a few other points that we've made bespoke for our own use.
So we've got 40 or 50 different data sets that some are more relevant to Pogo, some are more relevant for on-street residential charging. So I think the main ones that you guys are utilising or looking at are the traffic, how many people are passing a certain point, is there power available to support that charging, but trying to understand whether they're co-locating, which I think one of the things you guys are really interested in is putting chargers where someone already spends 30 minutes, whether it's a coffee shop, a gym, or whatever it may
be. Yeah, those points of interest are really important to us. I think what it does, it gives us that really quick and easy, not lightning quick, but a very, very quick assessment of a site. We've got hundreds, if not thousands, of sites that we look at every year. Mm-hmm. So if that became a really manual task, going onto Google Maps and driving by and looking at what was nearby and Google searches, that would take hours, hours and hours for us to do that accurately. And then going out and understanding what was available in terms of power would be another challenge to lay on top of that, as well as competition, which you could look through ZapMap. But it pulls all of those things together for us into one place, and it allows us to do that in a couple of minutes, essentially, and gives us a really good indicative score at the front, which gives us a level of confidence as to whether or not this is a site that we should proceed with or further develop.
Yeah, and I think you hit a really interesting point there, Stuart, is making sure that everything's in the same platform, so you don't end up having 20 browser tabs open as you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then whoever's doing it in the team means that there's this kind of consistency and objectivity that sits across that, and that you're doing it based upon the evidence. I think that's the way most of our customers, or the best customers, are using it. So,
yeah, and it's so important. I mean, essentially, we live or die through site selection.
Yes.
We're deploying hardware. There's a return on investment that needs to be made. It needs to meet drivers' needs in terms of location. And if we get that wrong, it's a costly mistake. So it's really important that lots of our decisions are data-driven.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with the DC fast charging that you guys are doing, it's not so much a volume game, but the capex on each individual site, you can't afford to get too many wrong, because otherwise the business model unravels, basically.
Yeah.
I think we're at the very early stages of EV adoption as it stands at the moment. I think we're looking at about 2 or 3% the number of EVs that are on the road. And our premise as kind of data scientists and trying to predict, help our customers to predict the future, is kind of one of the conundrums that's there. And I think if we look at there's lots of EVs are Teslas at the moment. In the future, it won't all be Teslas, and we're still in the very kind of early adopter stage. The behaviour of we believe that the behaviour of the early majority will be different. So at the moment, there's the demographics of people that are driving EV, because there's not much residual market in EV will change. As that early majority comes online, that will start to change the behaviour and the usage patterns of who's driving it. Is it someone that's driving for work or business versus someone that's dropping the kids at school and doing their grocery shopping? And so the profiles will change over time as the wider adoption of EV happens.
There's a lot of or there has been a lot of focus on service stations, MSAs, motorway service stations, and forecourts. But I think what's really interesting is where you're seeing pockets of usage pop up in and around. We're focusing on retail parks and roadside and hospitality, but there are some really unique locations out there that actually make for really good EV charging spots. And I think it's going to be really interesting watching those emerge. There's only so much room and so much power available at service station, which is why you often see queuing. And it's really nice, I think, to give the consumer some choice, to pick up a charge while they do their shopping or while they're at the gym. And I think that's going to be what already is an emerging, area of the EV industry at the moment. But as that matures and there's more volume, it's going to be really cool to see where all of those pockets, develop and how that grows. We couldn't have done anything that we've done at Pogo without the partnerships that we've got. And of course, Dodona have been really key there. It goes all the way through from, design, site selection, through to utilisation. We've partnered with lots of people. We've partnered with All-Star, and with SatMap, and with Power, and with ChargeSafe, and with Dodona, and people that I haven't mentioned are probably going to strangle me on WhatsApp after this has gone out, because there's a few others. But partnerships and people absolutely underpin everything that we've done, and they will continue to do so at Pogo. I think it's critical. You need it to be successful. I think you need partnerships. It adds value. It improves the customer journey. The partnership with Dodona has added value to the business in terms of how efficient we are. It's given us confidence in site selection, which is really key. And it's also probably educated us as well. Your product has developed and the solution has developed over the years, and that's brought additional themes and data points to us that we wouldn't otherwise have used, maybe. So I think that's something that we've taken a lot of benefit from.
And I think it is that two-way street. Obviously, Dodona are a commercial organisation, but we're only as good as people that are prepared to pay for our technology in the meantime. So it's absolutely key for us, and I think we've learned from you. And there's probably again, I won't name names, but there's some customers that we learn from, because we really do have that tight collaboration. And I think some of the work that we're starting to do on the land ownership with you guys now is really helpful as to what we develop in the future. That we are in a kind of embryonic industry, and I think if we don't all collaborate, then we won't reach these kind of common goals. And I don't think that there's very few organisations in our industry, or the EV charging industry, that have the ability to be able to do everything on their own. So we have to choose the right people that we can each collaborate with in order to be hit our individual business goals.
And that's where the word partnership comes into play, right? Because we've been in a position where we've been able to shape the tool. And there's lots of things in there that won't be a surprise to anybody. Traffic flows and points of interest, it's standard stuff in our sector, but there are other things that we do and other ways that we shape that tool to suit the business model that we have, and that's what's really cool, actually.
So we built the model for you, the data model specifically for you, and that's your IP, which allows us to work with direct competitors. So it's about saying, okay, understanding what your payback is, what does good look like, and it varies per charge point operator. Some of them perhaps don't have models that are not supportable in the long term, but it's without sounding trite about it, it's always a pleasure to work with people that where you can share these kind of common goals. So I think it's having the best, most consistent data to make the best decision that you can today. No one really has this kind of crystal ball, but it's about we'll often pull, so where are your competitors or existing charge points in the ground, and we're pulling that from multiple sources in order to get the best version of the truth to be able to, for you to make the right decision. And I think that's the data's not always readily available. It's like the power data or the DNO data. 3 years ago, none of the DNOs wanted to speak to us, and then they actually realised that we're kind of helping them as well, because if we create pinch points together, then that's to no one's best interest. So it's kind of an education with some of the the big legacy businesses like the OEMs, like the utilities, and trying to understand what those kinds of dynamics are. So the good news is we're in a high growth industry that's new. The bad news is we're in a high growth industry that's new as well. So how do we get that to work? And it will be probably unrecognisable in 5 years' time.
Sure.
Like the internet was 25 years ago. It changes quickly, right?
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that we face at Pogo, and I think, to be fair, this would be recognised by all of the other CPOs in this space, is that time that you take from post-site selection to actually getting into contracts and breaking ground through to energisation can be challenging, to be fair. I think the installation side of it, we've got that really tight now and really controlled. It's taking it through and getting the energisation piece at the back end, which is notoriously slow. We've made really good progress recently. I think that the site that I would reference is the Galleries in Washington, which is the site we hosted the EV rally on. I think we were in contract for that probably around Jan or Feb, and we energised in June, which is really, really quick to take that through from breaking ground, deploying, doing everything that you need to do with the DNOs, and energising. And again, it goes back to the conversation on partnerships and people. We had a really good partnership with the IDNO and the DNO there, as well as the contractor that we used, and that enabled us to really accelerate that timeline and get energisation much quicker than you would normally see in the industry. I think the remaining challenge is standardising and replicating that, and that's an industry challenge, and that's something that we're facing as a group, and we're being supported with the likes of Charge UK to push that through. But that does remain the biggest challenge. But I think what's really positive about that is that we have proven that we can do it faster. And if you get the right people on board and do the stakeholder management piece, you can get that right, and that's something that we do need to replicate.
Yeah, I think that replication piece is one of the biggest challenges. It's like, rather than looking for one site that happens to be an outlier, and it's I was talking to New York City Department of Transportation last week. They were like, "Oh, great, we've got some curbside chargers in the ground, and we're getting 70% utilisation." And I was like, "That doesn't mean that they're actually they're good places. It means you need more chargers." And so it's trying to identify why that's good. Could you replicate it somewhere else and repeat the process and behaviour to get those chargers in the ground? Because I think there is quite a lag time on this, and that's slowing down the wider adoption within our industry, and that's a challenge that often people, when we've got our rose tinted glasses on, we think it's going to be easy, and it's not. This is brave new world for everyone, basically. So I think very much with what you guys are doing is co-location as far as the experience is concerned. Put the charger where someone is already happy to spend 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever it may be. So you're not sitting at a motorway service station, which is no one's dream, spending an hour or more, especially if you're having to queue to get in there. I think part of the at the moment, I think a lot of EV drivers are driving EVs like they're ICEs, and I think this will kind of change. I think one of the kind of ideas that as I lay awake trying to sleep at night, is saying, okay, well, at peak times, could you encourage someone to charge to 80%? because it takes the same amount of time to go from 20 to 80% as it does from 80 to 100. It's like our phones. And I think these behavioural things, someone at 80% would still have enough range to be able to get home. We've been, grown up over, decades of putting a wet fuel hose in our cars and wait until it goes click. It doesn't need to be completely full in order to be able to do that. So I think it may be that, with EVs, that there's more behaviourally people are looking to, top up, or you encourage someone to charge at a time when historically looking at the back end data that maybe that's historically not a great time for utilisation. So you encourage people to use something at that time, or that this charger's busy, but you've got another one a couple of miles down the road. Is having worked in customer experience in banking and commerce, over the last 20 years, most people wouldn't accept the level of experience that exists in the industry, not with you, but the industry over the last, if your bank provided that kind of service, you go, okay, I need to change banks. And I think that experience of what customers' expectations are versus what the industry is delivering, certainly when it comes to the early majorities, will shift. It's not going to be completely different. So we're trying to look at the data that is informing that. As there's more charges in the ground, it allows you to be able to look at the behaviour of those assets and try and replicate that in the same way as the installation process that you were talking about, Stuart. So I think learning from the data sets, trying to understand how can you extrapolate that data set without necessarily affecting it. I think when we were first looking for traffic data, there was a provider that I think had one of the German OEMs, and we were like, okay, the data's not big enough. This is going to create confirmation bias, and therefore you shouldn't be making decisions based upon this data. So, applying data science principles to the data to be able to make sure that we're not all following a path that's going to take us somewhere that we don't want to go.
There are lots of different data points that feed in at the front around that site selection with Dodona that ultimately they pull through and affect the customer journey. The outcome that we want, or we certainly want to assess. Points of interest, really important. Lighting, how busy a location is, what sort of dwell time we might expect, and how safe a location could be. I think we can, again, from a really high level, that initial assessment, we can ascertain what that might look like on a site. Yeah. And ultimately that feeds through to the core strategy that we've got in terms of site selection. We're all about accessibility. One of our key partners is Charge Safe. So we hope to produce a site afterwards which has got accessible bays and is well lit and has got points of interest and has got other people around, and is really safe and practical for EV drivers to use. So it's really interesting when you talk about those data points and actually seeing how they flow through the portfolio, and they will lead to a site that's accessible and interesting and safe for drivers to use.
Yeah, I think it's as it evolves, and then I think we've started looking recently about overlaying crime figures in there, which probably affects you as the charge point operator, the Pogo as the charge point operator, but also the consumers. So you don't want your hardware vandalised or someone stealing the copper from the cables. Or conversely, someone who feels anyway vulnerable will struggle to sit in their vehicle for 30 minutes at 11 o'clock at night. There's a friend of mine, Tia, and she says, I never have a problem finding the EV charger. It's always at the back of the car park with no lighting behind the dumpster. And that's not encouraging gender diversity in EV adoption, unfortunately.
Yeah, there are. I've been to a couple of hubs. There's one actually that comes to mind. I won't name it, which is not far from where I live, which is essentially in a field with a picket fence around it with no lighting. It's not a Pogo hub, by the way, but it is quite intimidating when you go there late at night for a charge. It's not far from the motorway, and I can understand why people would not want to use a location like that. And service stations are great, 24 hours, toilets, lighting, CCTV, brilliant. But those other locations that sit outside of forecourts and service stations, they do need to be selected carefully to make sure people are safe and they're comfortable. And if they want to go and spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes doing something, there are things there that they can do. So yeah, really important.
Yeah, I think the flip side of that is that, we've seen it with you and just the market in general as well. But everyone that's got a brownfield site thinks that they've won the lottery. So the valuation, if they think, oh, we've got somewhere you could park cars here, maybe got some power. Someone was telling me about a site near Heathrow, and it was a B road. Okay, it's near Heathrow. That's great. There's loads of taxi drivers, except for it's down a small country lane, and there's no power within half a kilometre. So other than that, the site was perfect. And so I think it's quickly getting rid of that kind of dead wood that's there, and then you guys can focus in on where there's likely to be a good site.
It feeds back to that first comment, or one of the first comments I made as well, about us wanting to be efficient in the way that we assess sites and what we push through the portfolio. I mean, when we take a site through from that initial assessment, there's a lot of work that follows there with feasibility. CAD designs and renders and power applications and engaging the client to work through commercial terms. There's a lot of work that goes on there. Really, we want to make sure that we have a good level of confidence in that site before we pass it through to those following teams, and that's why it's so important.
Otherwise you just drown in the amount of sites that you've got.
Completely.
So I think there are more of our customers that have an international footprint. So with the US, we're just launching product in Germany as well. So I think what we've done certainly with the US, we're 2 or 3 years ahead of where, or they're 2 or 3 years behind where Europe is. So there's some learnings from that, and say, don't make the same mistakes we've made in Europe. So I think, going back to your point, Stuart, define a model or process that works and then replicate it. Leave the edge cases for another time. I think it's focus on something that you've got fairly clear certainty that's going to work, and then we can roll out. Because I think, as far as the industry is concerned, getting to this early majority of EV adoption is kind of key, and certainly the infrastructure side of that means that I think we've got about 20% of the charges that we need between now and 2030. And I did a quick calculation, and if we assume the number of public chargers that needs to be there, we think is about 500,000 by 2030. That is nearly 300 a day need to go into the ground every day for the next 5 years, 6 years.
Those 5 years will go really quickly.
Yeah, the last couple have gone really quickly as well.
Certainly for the installers.
Yeah. So I think understanding how do we now scale it to the next stage, and hopefully what we've learned by working together over the last couple of years is what to do and what not to do. We don't get everything right, but how do you make the best decisions today for tomorrow, basically?
So one of the most exciting things that I think is coming through on the horizon for us is plug and charge. Mm-hmm. I don't know when that will become a reality for Pogo, but it's something that, from a tech perspective, I'm really excited to see. I think, the functionality that Tesla got so right for the Tesla driver with the end-to-end experience was that ability to pull up to a Tesla charge point and plug in and take a charge and drive away, with minimum touch points, if any at all. And to roll that out across the industry, across lots of different networks and lots of different products and lots of different OEM and car manufacturers, I think will be a really significant moment for the industry. It will transform the customer experience. Everything then will be managed in back office and an app and subscriptions. And the day-to-day experience for me would be incredible from an EV driver. Mindset to go to any network and have that exact same experience essentially will be really, really cool.
I think it's a really interesting point, Stuart, about how that experience improves. And we're having a conversation with one of the OEMs at the moment, and they sell high-end vehicles. So, £100,000, dollars, whatever you want to call it, and you expect a certain level of care that sits with that. So, one of the things that they're thinking about is like, okay, we know you're going, there's a connected car, we know you're going from A to B today, we know you're not going to have enough range, we know what the temperature is outside, we know the state of your battery, and then being able to say, okay, and we know that Pogo chargers have good reliability, so therefore we recommend that you stop here along route, and we know that you prefer one coffee brand versus the other. That's when it all starts coming together. That's when it starts to become really interesting. And then people will make the EV decision because you go, okay, well, we used to stand there and fill cars up with wet fuel.
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of thing that will create the tipping point from an experience for everyone, basically.
Yeah, we're still so early on, as a sector, we're so early. And I think we can anticipate and see what's going to be on the horizon 5 years away. But that 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years is where will we be? It will just be awesome. But I don't know exactly what direction that's going to take. But I imagine it's just less touch points, more AI, predictive, data, telling you, learning from your behaviours, and exactly as you say, directing you to locations and charge points based on your historical behaviours, and it's going to be really cool.
I think we saw it with the Utilise announcement, and that's in the first 9 months, where apparently London had hit that the cleaner air that was predicted that it was going to take 185 years to hit, and we've hit that within 9 months. Now, the punitive charges that are associated with the ultra low emission zone, it's sometimes it hits the people that can least afford it hardest. When you can start improving air quality in our cities, there's some big tangible benefits that hang off the back of what we're all trying to do here. We will expand within our customer base here in the UK, and working with people like Pogo is key as far as that's concerned. Learning from how do we make each of our lives kind of better. Things like the crime figures and things like that. As far as we're concerned, we're looking to grow internationally. Doing what we're doing. Which is network planning, site assessment, which we think we do pretty well. So we're going into the US and also Germany and then other countries by the end of this year. I think beyond that, I think we have eyes on this experience piece and how we may be able to improve it. Working with customers to understand, okay, when might you give someone an incentive to charge, because that historically that's not been a great utilisation period, 8 till 10 p.m. on this particular site. So, personalising that, which is something that, as data scientists, we think we're fairly good at. And then I think there's also a macro problem in here as well. Not everyone can finish work, finish their day and plug in at 8 o'clock or 8 p.m. because the grid's going to start creaking and falling over at that point. So how do we try and balance that load of energy consumption by electric vehicles? And that's something that people that in our organisation that much cleverer than me, that have got PhDs and master's degrees in data science and modelled all kinds of things, but we're beginning to look at that as trying to understand, especially with renewable energy, because when it's supplied and when the demand is, these are not always the same thing. So how do we try and manage renewable energy when it's available and how we distribute it? Car batteries could be a way of doing either power in houses or vehicle to grid, which has been kicked around for longer than I remember. But
sure. For us, we're focused on deployment, and we've got a really good handle on deployment numbers, and they'll grow steadily year on year. And we've got sight of a really good back order book. So growth is under control for us. I think everything we'll be focusing on moving forward will be customer journey. Very similar to what you've spoken about there. It's refining the customer journey. We've got a handful of integration partners we're working with at the moment to try and refine that and change the way that we interact with clients and customers. I won't talk specifically about any of those, but everything that we sort of drive towards through 2025 will really be refining the customer journey and engaging with the customers and the driver community a lot more than we do today.
I think the next 3 to 5 years are probably taken care of. We just need to do a lot more of what we've already been doing.
Yeah, for sure. I think we just need to do better, really, in terms of the way, the whole experience works. And there's an element of consistency as well. I mean, we've spoken about it a couple of times about, repeatable and improving where you can. But yeah, the deployment piece is there. It's that customer journey bit that can be better, but it needs consistency, I think, across lots of different networks, not just across one.
Yeah,
and that's where that whole plug and charge piece comes in. I think that gives a consistent experience for people. But we're really focusing on how we can engage drivers, what we can add to the journey to make it a bit more enjoyable and a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I think that, you mentioned power earlier in the conversation, PAUA, Neil. And Neil said something to me 2-3 years ago that really resonated with me was, this needs to be so simple your grandmother could use it.
Sure.
And we're still not there. We've got multiple apps, multiple vehicles, multiple chargers, everyone's slightly different.
Yeah.
It's that giving that experience of just being able to go normalise it.
Yeah.
And, you're tired, you turn up at 11 p.m. and you go, okay, I've never used this brand or kind of charger before. How does it work? There needs to be some kind of consistency that allows people to go about their daily lives.
Totally agree. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.